We believe that much more needs to be done. It is true that there have been more supply entering during the month of April, but this is still far from enough to reverse the negative trend we have seen.
That was Philip Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of the UN agency charged with providing humanitarian relief to the people of Gaza, UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East. He was speaking at a press conference in Geneva on Tuesday. Lazzarini said at least 182 of his agency's employees have been killed since the start of Israeli military operations against the Gaza Strip. He added in a post on social media that Israeli attacks on Gaza had damaged 160 of the agency's facilities, killing a total of 400 others sheltering inside the buildings. During Tuesday's briefing, Lazzarini called for an independent investigation into killings and detentions of its staff and damage to its premises once the Israeli military leaves the Palestinian territory. Meanwhile, Monday, the International Court of Justice denied a petition by Nicaragua seeking an injunction ordering the suspension of military aid to Israel by Germany. It also denied a motion by Germany to dismiss the case. Aside from seeking a halt to weapons transfers, the case sought an order directing Berlin to resume its share of funding for the UN relief efforts. That was also denied. Nicaragua's ambassador to the Netherlands, Dr Carlos Arguello Gomez, is the attorney representing Nicaragua at the International Court of Justice in the case accusing Germany of complicity with Israel to genocide against the Palestinian population in Gaza. We spoke with the ambassador via Zoom. Mr. Ambassador, we see the request for intervention by the court was denied. Could you explain to us what just happened?
Well, the thing is that we began a case and we added to that case a request for provisional measures because we considered that it was important that the court order as soon as possible that Germany stop aiding, militarily in particular, aiding Israel. And also that it could begin refunding the program for refugees, the UNRWA, the United Nations Program for Refugees. What happened is that the court decided, after the explanations given by Germany, which in parentheses, we had no real occasion to refute them because of the procedure that was followed by the court. I mean, we spoke first and then Germany, and that we had no possibility of responding. But anyway, what Germany told the court is that they had stopped, that originally in October they had given a lot of assistance to Israel, but then that this had stopped, that now they were complying with all the rules of Europe in supplying weapons of this nature, that all lethal weapons had been stopped. And also they had announced a few days before that they had reinstated the funding of the refugee program. So what the court decided was that at this moment, there was not sufficient evidence or need for the court to dictate provisional measures. The case continues. Obviously, this was only, let's say, an incidental matter of the case. Now, what is important to indicate is that the court pointed out very clearly the obligations of all states. First of all, they said that what they recall what was happening in Palestine, and then they recalled the obligation of all states parties to the Genocide Convention and to the Geneva Conventions on the Laws of Wars to obey those rules by helping to prevent what's happening and not abet the situation. So they recalled all the obligations, particularly to Germany, of what was happening. But the decision of the court finally was that for the moment, and they specified that for the moment, there was no clear evidence or no clear need for provisional measures for the moment. In other words, from our point of view, is if there is any change in the situation, we immediately go back to the court and request again the provisional measures, in the same way that South Africa has done with Israel. South Africa has gone 3 times to the court for provisional measures. And so, I mean, the case is open for us. The case continues. I should perhaps point out, and perhaps I'm getting ahead of your questioning, but it's an important point that has to be kept in mind during the hearings. Particularly, I mentioned in one of my presentations that in the United States, there was a discussion in Congress for approval of $18 billion of aid to Israel, basically military weapons to Israel. And I mentioned that if Germany in the past has been involved in that type of situation, because part of the equipment and the ammunition or the spare parts or whatever, all that big bundle of money that involves all the military companies, which are globalized, they are in Germany, in the United States, everywhere, then that if that happened and that was approved, that Germany should take note that they cannot be participating in that type of program. So for me, now that it has been finally approved, this 18 billion, I mean, we're going to be very watchful that if Germany is participating in that program, then they are violating or they are going against what they offered in principle to the court, saying that they had diminished their help. And I mean, this question of the $18 billion is important because, for example, here in the Netherlands, which is the seat of the court, there was a case, a local case in the local courts against the government of the Netherlands because they were assisting in the spare parts for airplanes, for the military airplanes of given to Israel. But the military planes, American military planes, as part of a program. So now if Germany is going to participate in this big business, $18 billion business, as they have been doing in the past, then we are going to be very attentive, and if necessary, we'll go back to the court and tell them, this is what is happening right now. So this is basically the situation. The case continues. I mean, we are going to present it. The court now has to call the agents and give us an idea of when we have to present our memorial on the merits, whether Germany is going to discuss whether there is a jurisdiction of the court or whatever, everything that's going to happen. So that's going to be in the near future. And the case will proceed normally.
You have the absolute right to make an additional application, correct? And the court actually affirmed that in the order.
Oh yes, certainly. I mean, the court made it clear. I mean, that it said practically for the time being. I have it. I'll just read it. It's just one line of the text of the court. It's absolutely clear without any legalese. The court simply said that it finds that the circumstances as they now present themselves to the court are not such as to require the exercise of its power to indicate provisional measures. So the circumstances as they now present themselves to the court. So I mean, it's absolutely clear. I mean, if we have any evidence of anything that's happening, we are going. Obviously, we're not going to be bothering the court if they are going to, which they shouldn't be doing. But it's just a very minor operation. But I mean, we are not talking about a small country. Israel is one of the 10 most powerful countries in the world. I mean, the military expense of Israel is larger than that of Iran, much larger. It's among the 10 largest. So we're not talking about a few $100,000 of military aid. I mean, the aid going to Israel, we're talking about billions. It's a very substantial amount of aid.
One of the things that was addressed in this, in the case that Nicaragua brought also, is the fact that in the South Africa case, there were instructions to Israel to permit, and I think it's actually the word was enable, humanitarian relief to reach the people in Gaza, and immediately the next day, and this was recited, if I remember in the order yesterday, Germany and the United States, Germany the following day, as to remain here, suspended the funding to the main relief agency, UNRWA. Is there a surprise? Are you surprised that the court didn't address that question other than to throw it out there that this is still, pending condition?
Well, in fact, the court addressed it, not deeply, but it addressed it because what happened was that Germany a few days before the order of the court, Germany had reinstated the funding for UNRWA. So they had already voluntarily reinstated it.
Oh, I see.
So that's what happened. I mean, I'm not saying I can't even be so saying that it's so important, the case with Nicaragua, that this was what provoked Germany to do that. But I mean, it's part, let's say it's the small grain of sand that we are contributing to all this international mobilization of people who are appalled by what's happening in Israel. So I mean, it's whatever happened, with whatever the reason, well, Germany was forced to reinitiate that help.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Appreciate it.
No.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.